Are you intrigued by those who make the right choices to achieve success? Curious about what it is they know that makes them successful? What have they learned from their careers and life journeys? In his interviews with some of London's most authentic leaders, David C.M. Carter reveals secrets of success to inspire and motivate you to pursue your dreams. Insights from people of all backgrounds will empower you to get ahead. Learn from those who have challenged their status quo and understand what it takes to overcome failures and setbacks. Change your mindset and begin your journey with this episode of Secrets of Success.
I was a sort of working class kid who lived on the borders of Hayes in Southall and West London. And I ended up running the BBC, being chairman of the FA, chief executive of London Weekend Television, and a load of other interesting jobs. So I've had a blessed life.
I'm a Palestinian. I lived in East Jerusalem, and I remember the occupation really, really well. And why is it important? Because the world changed. It changed in a massive way. And I understood that things can happen and change can be sudden and brutal, and it changes the deck.
When I was 10 years old, we moved to America from India, and we had a really nice lifestyle there, but it was just a huge change at such a crucial developmental stage.
Yeah, I've been expelled. I was expelled from Dulwich College twice, which I think is a record.
I come from quite a poor working class background. My father, who's still alive, was a butcher. My mum, for many years, worked in a Clark's shoe shop. That's where my work ethic comes from. They taught me that actually, if you believe you can do it, you probably can, but nothing comes on a plate. You've really got to work hard to do it.
What's the worst failure you've ever suffered?
In terms of how I perceived it at the time, I'd left Eton and I was trying for Oxford and I did not get in. And it's not a big deal in the history of things, and if I look back on it, but at the time it was a massive failure, partly because I wrongly felt a sense of entitlement, and therefore not getting in was probably the most devastating blow I ever had. All blows thereafter were less because I never had that sense of entitlement.
I was hopeless at school. I'd failed at school. I left with 1 grade EA level.
In what?
In maths. And I met my maths teacher in a pub years later, and he said, "I still quote you, Dykers, why not to give up at the mocks, because miracles can happen." And I only understood about the thought process and thinking in the academic world by going back to university when I was 24.
And what was the epiphany or the wake up that you thought, I want to go to university?
I suppose I thought, if you wanted to be clever, you had to have gone to university. I discovered much later that that's not necessarily true. So,
age 10, you grew up where in India?
Near Mumbai, so everybody generally knows where Mumbai is. It's a city called Pune. It's extremely dense in terms of universities, so it's very education oriented, and that's always been part of my life from when I was very young. So I grew up there, and then I moved to New Jersey.
And so you moved to America, New Jersey, age 10. It was a pivotal event because of what?
It was, I was very sheltered in India, so our whole upbringing was very local, very much about family and the local community. So being put into a situation at age 10 when kids tend to be very hostile, generally around that age, and in a whole new country, new day-to-day language, new cultural norms, just a huge change in every single way, sort of physically, mentally, psychologically, every way.
How did you cope with that shock?
Yes. So I think one of the things that has guided me throughout life is how do you approach any new situation. And so, what I did through a lot of challenging circumstances is just to say, I'm different, I'm unique, and actually that's my greatest strength.
I got into marketing totally by accident. I did a degree in French and English at Manchester and didn't know what I wanted to do. And my careers officer said that she thought I would be great in marketing. She was either very astute or that was the only thing she knew because she had been in marketing herself. And I remember buying the M&E handbook on how to bluff your way in marketing, learnt what the definition of marketing was and got an interview with the Co-op. And in the M&E handbook, there was a paragraph on the Rochdale pioneers, who were obviously the forerunners of the cooperative movement. And I learnt about those, went for the interview at the Co-op and got the job.
Born in Epsom, grew up in Croydon, so cultural capital. I left school at 18. I got my first retail job at 13, selling computers in Croydon, and just enjoyed the thrill of selling. And I'll be talking about it later, so I won't go into the details, but won this scholarship at this amazing school and started to learn how to think and behave.
Where was that school?
School of Communication Arts, that was at the time in Vauxhall. And that took me into advertising, and advertising took me into technology, and by my early 20s I'd started to find one version of success, financial success, and saw my first .com in my, mid-20s or so. Started to find some more financial success, and I suppose I spent my 20s and 30s building businesses and creating value until I got into my early 30s, fell out of love with money, and decided to do what it was that I really wanted to do, which was reopen this great school that I went to. I have an unusual model in my school. We have 36 students, but 750 mentors volunteer their time freely. And the idea that so many people are prepared to volunteer their time freely, I find that so rewarding and inspiring.
41 years ago when I started work, being a female was quite tricky, and I remember being interviewed at ICI Paints division, as it was at the time, and being told in the interview that to be treated equal to the guys I had to be at least 10% better. And I remember sort of calling their bluff and saying, that's fine, I'll be at least 15% better.
And I felt very lost, because up until then I had life planned out. I mean, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do history, and then I'm going to go to Gray's Inn like my father, I'm going to get my law degree, I'm going to join the bar, I'm going to be called to the bar, I'm going to join a practice in some chambers, and all planned out. And the whole thing just goes, and you go, oh God, start again. And so there was and I was lucky it happened in those days. You had to do the Oxbridge term, if you remember. So I had time off working in the Gulf when this happened. So I had a lot of time in the desert to think about it. So it gave me time, and it made me rethink. And very, very luck again, I was admitted into King's London. And I then asked myself, why do I want to be in England? So that's one thing. And then the second thing, I decided that there is a reason why I want to be here. England is not all about the people who go to Eton. England's about England. And so I thought, I want to know real England. And so I started getting to know England proper, so to speak.
Any other failures?
All other failures were not, to me, they didn't knock me as much. The interviews that didn't work, it's just the luck of the draw. The career progression that doesn't happen, you just say that's part of life and you just go back and have it. It is an attitude thing. If you don't take success for granted, setbacks do not upset you. They only upset you if you think it's inevitable that you will win. And you must never think that.
some other things after I left university, and I ended up as a researcher at London Weekend Television. Went through the process, left, helped create TVAM, went to somewhere else, but in the end I ended up back at London Weekend Television, and I was the director of programmes, and they were going to make me the chief executive, and they thought I ought to know something about business, and they were right.
How long did you go to Harvard for?
I did one of those 3-month courses, you know, but again, for me what it taught me was trust what you are. Trust in what you believe. I mean, there was a brilliant man lecturing there called John Cotter, who was basically the first leadership person I mean, this is a long time ago now. First leadership person I'd come across, you know, who actually taught the difference between leadership and management.
I was living in New York, successful in banking, successful in sort of early days of success in venture capital, and you know, it was just booming at that time, sort of late 90s or early 2000s. And so I could have stayed there. I have a network there. I have all the support infrastructure, and it made no sense to actually get on that one-way flight and head over to Europe. So it's
So
sort of
why did you choose to go to Europe, to INSEAD in France, to do your MBA?
Because I'd done
Given all of that network and support and infrastructure you already had in place.
Right.
That was quite a brave move, wasn't it?
It was, but I think, I mean, I did it for interest. So I think, you know, I had become Americanized and become very much part of a homogenous community and society, and I think I was just looking for, again, a change.
Do you think it's a great thing for most people to do, to have some overseas experience and live in a completely different world and culture?
I definitely, it's broadened my perspective so much, because I think when you're young, you know, if you are listening to the teachers and adults around you, you can be honed in into a certain way of thinking and certain value systems. And I think to go abroad and to be challenged by new ways of thinking, and either they help you get stronger with your own kind of set of values you grew up with, or they allow you to expand and bring in, you know, more sets of systems into your frame of acceptance. So I think absolutely getting immersed in more cultures, you know, more sort of groups that are different is hugely valuable, as long as I think you know where you come from.
Who has been the greatest ever teacher or mentor?
Oh, wow, that's the easiest question on your list for me. That's John Gillard. John ran the school before me. He founded the school. He was the greatest creative educator I think Britain's ever produced. I mean, he's just trained generations of great creative talent. And he gave me a scholarship, and he changed my life. I mean, I arrived at that school an idiot. I'd never read a book in my life. And he was very patient with me, but he worked me very hard. And you know that old cliches about you know, that caterpillar turning into a butterfly and all of this. Well, that happened not just for me, but for lots of students who've been through John. That happened. That eyes were opened, and I was taught, properly how to think, how to see the world and understand more about the world, and how to find real problems, not just problems that we think are written down on a piece of paper that we're trying to solve through advertising, but real problems, and find interesting solutions.
I've worked with a whole variety of people over the years, as you can imagine, and sometimes, as I'm sure is true in all sorts of walks of life, sometimes you learn the most from seeing people not do it very well rather than actually seeing people do it extremely well. I've had some great chairmen. When I first came to Camelot, Sir George Russell was our chairman, and he was absolutely amazing. Sir George actually ran the board incredibly well, and I've learnt a lot from him in terms of how to get the best out of the board members, but keeping things sharp and pithy rather than sort of going around the houses all the time. And he was a very good leader.
So do you run your own team meetings like that now?
Yeah, yes.
Spent a bit of time on the board of Manchester United, and I sat next to Alex Ferguson the other night, and he's still an inspirational character. I mean, because how did he do it for 25? I once wrote to him when I was at the BBC and said, look, can we come and make the documentary? I want to know what you do. Wouldn't do it. But it's really interesting. What do really successful people like that, who reinvent a team 4 or 5 times over 20 odd years, what is it they do? What's the talent? And I'm not sure we knew. I'm not sure he knew either, by the way. But you know, that's interesting. What are people who change the world? What is it they do?
My father taught me 2 things, which have been 2 of the core values I've always believed in. One is courage. He worked in law, and he was a politician, and he was a soldier, and he showed moral courage and personal courage at all times. He also taught me the importance of integrity, to which I'm incredibly grateful for. He sending me off, again, the days before Twitter and before emails and before mobile phones, sending me several thousand miles away to school overseas. And I am a father now, and I have a 12-year-old boy, and so I know how difficult it is. How do you guide someone that you're not next to guide? And integrity was taught to me from him, not just by example, but by giving me a very simple test. He said to me, you're older now, you will start shaving soon, so every morning you will stand in front of the mirror and you'll shave. And every single action that you ever do, ask yourself the following question. Are you happy for that action yourself? Is the person in the mirror content with it? And if you're content with it, are you happy to make it public, by the way? But are you happy with it? Are you content with it? Do you believe it's right? And if that's the case, then you're doing the right thing, whatever the others say. But if that reflection is embarrassed about an action or a thought or a written text or whatever it is you've done, you know it's wrong. Go back and put it right.
So you were in a corporate culture that was making you unhappy and had an impact on your health and your well-being, and you eventually decided to get out of there and break off and do your own thing. And that was the breakthrough.
Absolutely.
A year and a half later, you woke up and thought, I've landed where I'm supposed to be on this planet. Talk to me about the process you went through. How did you come up with the idea? How did the idea come to you? How did you move from being unhappy and unhealthy to happy and healthy? What was that process?
Yeah, I think in all things, when you start something, it's never completely individual. So I was very lucky that even during that time I was in corporate, I did what I know best, which is really go out there, talk to people, get to know people, form relationships, not just sort of superficial, I know so-and-so, but really develop relationships. And so, you know, as a group, we really thought about how do you bring Europe together and how do you bring European founders together and create an ecosystem. So that was kind of the germ of the idea. And my involvement in coming on board was to say, rather than it being something ephemeral and short term, can we make it more permanent and long term? You know, with venture capital and early stage of seed funding and pre-seed funding, 6 years ago, we brought a very disruptive way of doing things. Is about saying we're not going to compete, all of us different funds and different people. We're actually going to come together and support, you know, one organization to do this, and we're going to do it in different ways. We're going to deploy capital no matter what. So people asked us, what if you don't find the good ideas? Well, we're taking that risk. We're going to deploy.
The most pivotal event was as incumbent of the National Lottery at Camelot losing the second licence. I believe passionately in fair play, and this just didn't feel fair. If neither
Didn't
bid,
feel fair because
if neither bid was good enough, then both of us should have had a month to try and put the flaws in our bid right, in my opinion. And it was quite pivotal for me. We had meetings with our QC on that Wednesday afternoon, and then again on the Thursday. And the board said, if you want to fight, we'll support you doing a judicial review. QC said 9 out of 10 judicial reviews fail, and nobody at that stage had successfully done a JR on their regulator. So the chances of winning were actually pretty slim. But I felt that with 800 jobs at stake, it was only fair to the staff that we gave it our best shot, really. I wasn't CEO at the time, I was commercial director, but because the deal was that if we won the second licence and I took over immediately, I'd been the face of the bid going in. And so we decided to do the judicial review. We won, we got back in the race, and eventually on the 19th of December at 4:01, we actually won the second licence, and I became CEO at that time.
And John realised on day 2 that I probably wasn't going to be a fantastic writer, and anybody that's read my first book will nod their head and agree with that. And John took me to his office and he said, "Will you do me a favour?" I said, "John?" And he gave me this book to read called Future Shock by Alvin Toffler. And it was the first proper book I had read in my life. The premise of the opening chapter, Toffler says, everything from the smallest bacteria to the largest galaxy, everything is a process, and all processes evolve, and they're all evolving faster and faster and faster. And he coins this term exponential speed of change. And I was like, wow. And that was my breakthrough moment, was realizing that you have permission to look at every single thing around you and go, how can I make that better? How can that process be improved? And that just is liberating, to realize that the world is a toy box, the world is a Lego set, and you, if you think about it and you apply proper thought and proper focus, and you're prepared to take a few risks, everything can be improved if you want it to. If you want to sit on the other side of the fence, you can make everything worse if you want to. But certainly every process can be changed. That was my breakthrough moment, realizing that actually we are all gods. All of us are gods, and we all have permission to make everything around us better if we want to.
as you've looked back on your career, and even the role that you're doing now at the FA, is there a theme of going into organisations and turning them round, or giving them a new purpose or a new vision or a new direction? Or
well, I work on the basis that the first thing you've got to do is try and get the staff on your side, because you can't achieve much if you haven't got them on their side. But really, you're saying, in most organisations, what is to be done? What are the good ideas? Let's do them. Let's just get on with. It's about speed. It's about how fast can you move? How quickly can you get things done? If you've got the money, you can go boom. And the Director General is incredibly powerful in the BBC. I mean, I left in a fairly bloody way, but that wasn't a battle within the BBC. That was a battle with government, where the governors of the BBC lost their bottle.
over what?
Over Iraq. And over whether or not...
The Hutton inquiry, wasn't it?
And whether or not Tony Blair had sexed up the case for war. I mean, what's funny, 10 years on, is that everybody knows he sexed up the case for war, but at that time it wasn't quite as clear cut.
Do you think that in your business you can be lucky?
I think sometimes in my business you can be lucky. I think in business you have to identify a need and deliver it. I think there are elements where, or there are times when luck will give you success for a time. But I'm a great believer that successful businesses are built on values, not on luck. And provided your values are good values, then they work. Specifically in my business, I'm in the financial business. The reason why
You manage.
we're a fund management company. We manage pension schemes, primarily the pension scheme of BT pension scheme, but also of other institutional clients. The city forgot its values, and it's forgot that it's there to look after ordinary people's savings. It completely forgot it. And the city got to a stage where it thought its purpose was to perpetuate itself and to make more money. Now, some firms got lucky for a time, and then we had the crash of '08, and their luck ran out. For firms to last a long time, for this city to last a long time, you would need them to go back to the values, and that is not about luck. That's about deciding what is right and doing what is right, not just for the people involved, us, not just for our clients, by the way, which is important. And by our clients, I mean the underlying ordinary people. The city lives on the savings of ordinary people who do not make a lot of money, and it's for them that we should serve, but also on the community that we live in. And if you have these values and you know where you're going, then no, it's not luck. It's actually applying it correctly.
I mean, you've had a remarkable success story over the last few years. It's amazing to read and learn about. Do you think you could have achieved that if you'd had a life imbalance, or do you think you kind of need to be a bit off the charts, mad crazy, to actually pull off something like you've achieved? Is it possible to build and grow a successful enterprise like you've done and have balance, or do you think there's a compromise and a trade-off that is always inevitable?
Yeah, I mean, I think 99% of the people I meet that do something highly successful in a short enough period of time, there is this relatively long burst of time where it is crazy and fast-paced and intense.
My ambition is to destroy the university system because I feel that universities are not fit for purpose, particularly in vocational learning. The way that we run education here, certainly since industrial age education that we have, which is actually kind of a byproduct of the agricultural age education, is we send people to the school, and maybe we go in for a parents' day, and maybe we go and see them in a school play, but we don't take an active role. And I just feel that industries, communities would be better served when they have a stake in the development of the journey of the curriculum and the delivery of the curriculum. They'll get to understand the culture of each learner, so they can spot which learner is best for which enterprise. Different enterprises have different cultures, and different people have different behavioural cultures. And being able to kind of mentor at that grassroots level and spot what each soul is about and help them through that journey, but also help them find their natural home. So the learning models that we've developed, or we continue to develop at SCA, we've proven through the results that they work very well in creative advertising, but they would also work well in architecture or landscape or jewellery design or fashion or music. We've learned so much about psychology over the last 20, 30 years, so much about understanding behaviour. I mean, you think about some of the key books, say for me, that have been written over the last 20, 30 years, studies like flow and understanding flow, and how little of that is applied in education. And we know that flow is where accelerated learning takes place. It's bonkers and it's criminal.
I like being able to make a difference. My career in the main is typified by jobs where I've been able to go in and actually make a real contribution. Social responsibility is something I take personally very, very seriously. If you look at the lottery, I mean, it would be easy to sell more tickets than we currently do by marketing very aggressively to those people who really can't afford to be playing the lottery. And one of the things I'm personally most proud about is that here we are 20 years on, we've still got about 70% of the adult population play on a regular basis, but they're spending relatively small amounts of money, about £3, £3.50 a week. So the model here in the UK is millions of people playing, spending small amounts of money, which is not the same in lotteries around the world.
My criteria was never money. I happened to have made quite a lot of money, but that was irrelevant. That wasn't what I was after. My criteria was, did I enjoy it? Did I get good jobs where you could get things done, where you could have ideas? I remember saying to someone who came to television once, look, forget about all the techniques, all of this, all that. In the end, it's about good ideas.
There are geniuses, obviously there are, but outside of geniuses, we're all the same. And the only differentiator is how much we're willing to keep at what we want to do and how much we really want to do it. And if we really want to do something and we keep at it, you can succeed. What stops you often is embarrassment.
My generation is kind of caught in this place of, this is the value system I grew up with. It tells me that if I just do this, I will get to Y position, and that's just not how the millennials and the new world order works.
Money is just an illusion, and you think it's there to make you happy, but it's not. And once you've got a nice house and food on the table, and as long as we don't have any debt, there's no point in excess.
Happiness is when you empower others, because by empowering others, you can see you've done something right, then you feel happy with yourself.
Treat people properly. I mean, nobody ever got better out of somebody by making them feel afraid. They got better out of somebody by making them feel valued. So make people feel cared for, make them feel valued, particularly if in a working relationship.
You know, my people are my biggest asset, and I'm very proud that we've been in the Sunday Times top 100 best employers for several years. And my people are my greatest asset, and I want them to come to work and enjoy being at work. And so yes, I think making a difference for them too is really important.
You can find successful people who, when you knew them 20 years ago, were humble and were, had that quality about them, but they certainly lose it along that journey. And those who can combine both and really stay humble are hugely inspirational, because if you lose that, I think you lose a big part of your soul.
I think success, it's stretching to achieve stuff that's excites, scares, humours, whatever your stretch is. It's, what would happen if we did this to this model? What would happen if we said this about that? It's whatever you, like I said in my first part of the question, it's whatever you feel is just pushing, but you feel you could maybe, with a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work, you could maybe just get there.
Take chances, take risks. If you fail, well, you'll recover. You'll come back another way. But if you don't take the chance, if you don't take the opportunity when it's there, if you're nervous of it or scared of it, or you're scared of what happens if it goes wrong, you'll never do it.
I don't believe life is about looking back and regretting. It's about looking forward and living, in my opinion.
It takes courage to stand by your values. It takes courage to persevere when you fail. It takes courage to surmount difficulties in life. And courage is shown in many, many little ways. The little boy who trips and falls and hurts his knee and gets up and plays again. The sportsman who gets up and tries again. The person who's defeated and goes back and tries again. That is courage.
We were the last generation where if you worked hard, got into the right university, got into the right job after university, your path was set. And that's just not true today. So the kids coming out of schools and universities, it's not true for them. Even if you are a hard worker and you get the good grades, it's much harder to be on a path to success. Whereas, whether it's through technology or being entrepreneurial and being sort of disruptive and thinking in different ways is really, more supportive of a path to success.
I'm absolutely totally committed to honesty. I really can't stand people who tell lies. I really can't, and I think you've got to be very smart to tell lies and get away with it anyway. But absolute honesty, total integrity really, really matters to me, and passion. I think to do the best that you can in whatever walk of life, you've got to be passionate about what you do.
Everything is a canvas, and everything is an opportunity for you to play.
Do not mind if you falter. You do not mind if you make a fool of yourself, and you do not mind if you don't quite get it and you just keep going. I'm a great believer. It's all about persistence. You just keep going.
Work out what it is that you really enjoy about what you do, and work out the things that you don't enjoy as much, and try and make sure that going forward you concentrate on the former rather than the latter.
Be you. Don't be anything else. Be you.